Are SEOs and CROs mortal enemies?
Probably, if they're anything like.
What is up, certified homies? Welcome to another episode of From A to B. You have Shiva, and I'm joined by Sam, the SEO Guy Dunning, who is a super huge podcaster, a content creator, all things SEO. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, Shiva. Thanks for having me on, man. Looking forward to the chat.
So, first question before we get started off. Are SEOs and CROs mortal enemies?
Probably, if they're anything like. if it's anything like SEO and web devs, then probably yes. Depending on the size of the organization, right? I mean, so many times that SEOs can want to get content shipped, be it articles, landing pages, whatever, queue it up. The web dev puts it to the bottom of the list purely because they're annoyed by being nagged so much by the SEO. And then 10 weeks later, you might see a page published.
I've always felt like CRO is on the outside of things looking in, and SEO always gets the love. SEO always gets all of the resourcing. Well, okay, I say that tongue in cheek because, like, if we get table scraps, we're excited. We're like, thank you for the table scraps. You guys are also fighting for resources too, then.
It's funny, I just got off a call literally 10 minutes ago before this show. And this is like a company with 500 to 1,000 employees, really well-established, fast-growth B2B tech. They basically just got burnt by their last agency for SEO. They didn't really do anything. And then when we get around to like, what are you prepared to invest? And they're like $3K a month. And I'm like, are you joking? Like, you're probably doing like over 100 grand a month in ads and you're going to do 3K in SEO. Like, what's that going to get you for the size of your business? Like, how much resource do you think we can actually assign for that? So it's SEO often organic search compared to like paid demand gen and a bunch of outbound sales team. It's at the bottom of the pile as well, man. SEO is like something folks forget about, leave for as long as they can until they feel the pain of constantly seeing brands above them organic search. Then they'll start considering it.
Why do you think that is? I have a very good grasp on why CRO doesn't get the love it needs. Why does SEO not get the love?
I think it's just because certainly from like, a lot of the things I speak to are B2B tech, right? And I think from that perspective, it's just a traditional model, like especially for funded B2B companies in the tech world, like usually they'll go outbound sales. So they'll hire a team of SDRs, BDRs, and go that traditional motion to set appointments. Then because they've probably got investors on their back, they'll probably dump a load of cash into paid ads, be it Google paid search, be it then using LinkedIn ads to retarget, capture the right market, build some demand. And then only probably once they've ran that on its course and maybe hit some kind of cap, and then probably someone's pointed out to them, be it one of the VCs, be it a marketing leader or someone like that, until someone said, like, we're not really getting any organic inbound. Our competitors are always ahead of us. Like when I search for alternatives to our brands, there's always competitors ahead of us. Then they might think about doing some SEO. So it's neglected a lot.
So it's just not sexy. People don't think it's sexy.
Unless leadership have done SEO previously or have hands-on expertise. Yeah. That's the time where it gets brought in earlier. Yeah. They understand the value.
So it's really funny because I think SEO and CRO share a lot of commonality in that, because so many times the things that people assume CRO does is it's a checklist of best practices to just implement on your site. I got a DM today from someone and they're like, tell me the things I need to do on my site to increase conversion rate. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Show me research, show me data. Like that's not how it works. Maybe it's because like even SEO, from folks I've talked to with SEO, there's not always a guarantee that if you do rituals and activities, you'll get guaranteed lifts. Now there's a process you follow, but Google could just roll out a new algo that just totally fucks everything that you've done, right?
Exactly. Especially like 2 days ago, they released AI overviews in the US. The AI instant results are coming, although that's going to affect more B2C and more top of funnel kind of informational queries. Eventually, a lot of kind of publishers that will impact that have been relying on that kind of traffic. So like you say, you can't control the algo, and there's always stuff outside of our control.
Yeah. So I saw this infographic on some website, SEMrush, and it was a concentric circles of SEO and CRO. And the overlap, I don't know if they did this for just visual purposes or this is truly however much overlap that they thought, but the amount of overlap was very small. I don't know if I agree or disagree with that. What do you think the amount of overlap between SEO and CRO is? Is it a two concentric circles that are totally overlapped? They don't even intersect, or is it a small? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll give my 2 cents and then you can dive into where I'm extremely wrong on the CRO side of things.
Sounds good.
There's so many elements to SEO, right? You've only got to scroll LinkedIn and you'll see folks that are super technical on the SEO side, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll start talking about heading tags, Ahref stuff, and like good diving into deep SEO stuff that I don't even understand.
That's
And
so
then,
funny because that's like the math people in CRO.
right,
For me, at
okay,
least. I'm not a math geek, but
same.
there's so many parallels. That's so interesting. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Whereas I'm like the opposite end of that. I'm like, do basic technical SEO, but unless
Yeah.
your website's got 10, 20, 30,000 pages, like technical SEO isn't that important. And as long as you nail the basics, I'm more strategy, content, what's going to move the needle fast and start getting us qualified traffic to drive leads, demos. When it comes to the kind of overlap, so there's a few elements you want to think of, like the SEO can be split into like technical SEO, content-led SEO, customer research, which a lot of SEOs don't even talk about. Like if the content that you're putting out, be it on landing pages, service pages, alternatives pages, blog articles, be them top, middle, or bottom of the funnel, like if that content is just built to rank instead of actually to resonate with these target clients, i.e., the expensive problems they're facing, the impact of those problems and not fixing them, showing some social proof, and then building trust, answering their common questions, etc., depending on what type of page it is, whether it's a landing page, whatever. But if that content isn't resonating and you're just building it to rank, someone's going to click on that page, look at it for a few seconds and think, this is like a shit wall of text. I'm heading off to someone who gives me a better experience and actually understands my world. And then when you layer that with, I suppose, my understanding of the CRO side of things, like actually something that's going to look good and influence this prospect to take some kind of action. So if it's like a top of the funnel article, maybe diving into their niche or questions around the niche or best practices, like if it's an article that's, like I said, then purely a wall of text, where there's something that's compared to something that's nicely designed, like the article, the paragraphs are nicely split up, it's skimmable, it's got some infographics in, maybe it's got a video rundown, maybe it's for a SaaS piece of software, so it's got like a video demo or playable demo, it's got some customer quotes, it's got some examples, some stats, it's maybe got a fixed call to action to the right hand side so you can check out their newsletter or grab a lead magnet, as opposed to just a wall of text that someone's going to flick on and think, oh, this looks like a bloody essay that I'm just going to bounce off to another page. So there's a lot of things there.
It's interesting to hear you talk about customer research because that's something that CROs and SEOs should share in. I don't want to say what you're saying isn't CRO because I think that could be part of it. It could be part of the optimization part, but I use CRO and experimentation kind of interchangeably. And I think it's more just like, how do you optimize the user experience, but also how do you generate motivation? How do you build demand? Things like that, I would say, are all part of the quote unquote CRO optimization experimentation process, which those things I think do have overlap with SEO because you want to build content that is valuable to users, which will inherently generate motivation. And it has to, content wise, work on an SEO perspective. You have to look at the research to make sure it's actually content they would consume, not look at it for 10 seconds, be like, this sucks and leave. Even if the content's great, if it looks like it's just a text file on your website and it'd maybe be great if you add GIFs or other things to make it more engaging, then that's probably going to impact your SEO. But I mean, dude, that's obviously going to affect your actual conversion rates as well.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff's pretty interesting to hear how much overlap there is between those two. So we talk about content. I wanted to share an example with you because this was a pretty fun thing that I had to kind of go through. When I was at Gartner, this is, I guess, SEO adjacent. It's in paid search for quality score, but I think the concept is still kind of the same. When we were running tests, there would be certain tests where we would see our quality score increase. And to me, quality score is the adjacent of like SEO score, just like improving your SEO. When we had a very, very long page that had a lot of content related to keyword searches, we would see our quality score increase, our CPCs go down, but our conversion rates tanked. So we're like, all right, noted. And then we would actually redirect them to another page where it was more conversion focused, less content, and we would actually see quality scores decrease. So that's where I say, like, do we hate each other? Because sometimes it does feel like there can be this, like, when one goes up, the other goes down and vice versa.
It's always going to be a battle, isn't it? Especially when, from an SEO perspective, if you're trying to outrank certain pages, that often means that you've got to build out a page that's more useful, more helpful, more valuable than whatever's ranking organic position one right now. Technical SEO and backlink profile aside, And that usually means understanding what that page is lacking, whether it's kind of hands-on content from someone that's experienced in the subject, experienced in the field, whether that's addressing more FAQs than they're handling, whether it's handling more objections in the copy, whether it's sharing unique data, like I don't know, some kind of survey that you've conducted and then using that, or whether it's weaving in some kind of unique tool that you've built out for the audience. But often that means that the page is going to be, certainly from an article perspective, fairly long form.
Yeah.
Then I can see, like you said, a CRO coming into play and saying, like, no one's going to scroll that far, dude. Like, it needs to be like 1/4 of the length.
Yeah.
But there, as you know, there's things that you can do to make sure content's presented in a way that's better for the user. And there's a bunch of ways you can do that.
What do you think about like identifying the purpose of the page? Because I actually think that's something that's probably incredibly important for SEO. You have like blog posts and you're like, the purpose of the blog post is not to generate thousands of leads. It exists as content to get people hooked into the website, brand awareness, stuff like that. Yeah. So I think that's maybe something that CROs tend to maybe ignore. And you think about like, let's just give you like a basic e-com example, right? Like you think, all right, the product page's purpose equals get people into cart. And the cart's page purpose equals get people into checkout. Like overly simplistic, but I don't think that's the reality. And David Manheim talks a little bit about this too. Like it's stages, not pages, where
that's nice.
It's rhyming is obviously the name of the game, right? It has to rhyme. But the whole theory around that is the page doesn't equal the part of the funnel. It's what's the user's head at. So an example would be, I go to a product page because I had a coupon. I'm like, I just want to know if this coupon even works. Because if it's 15% off, then that's great. And I'm going to go to the checkout and I'm going to put the code in. That doesn't mean I have high intent. I actually have quite low intent because I'm just trying to test the coupon.
Yeah, exactly.
But is that something that SEOs consider quite a bit?
They should do. I don't know if everyone does. I don't know if everyone. But in SEO, it's usually referred to as search intent. For example, like you said there, you could have something that was relatively low intent. So in my game, it might be someone that's, I don't know, searching for like B2B SEO tools, or if they're in maybe they're looking for a proposal software game or something like that, like how to write sales proposals that convert, or top tips for sales proposals. Like that's someone really early in the quote unquote buying journey. They're looking for tips, ideas, and insights. They're not ready to book a demo and speak to a salesperson.
Right.
Best case scenario, they land on your article. They grab some tips, they think this is useful, and then maybe they subscribe to your email, grab a lead magnet, or check out your podcast or YouTube. That's the kind of CTAs that you should be including in that article. And then they're in your ecosystem, right? And then kind of SaaS companies are probably going to then retarget that prospect. If it fits their ICP, they're probably going to retarget them in LinkedIn ads or whatever ads are relevant. It's very unlikely that person's going to book a demo. So if you're jamming a book a demo CTA down their neck, like it's not going to do a lot. Whereas if we go further down the funnel, if someone's like, if I go back to the proposal software game, if someone's searching for like, if they're weighing up their options, maybe they're looking like Proposify alternatives or PandaDoc alternatives, like just some common proposal software brand names, then they're probably weighing up their options. They're probably on the fence and thinking, well, I want to get 2 or 3 vendors. Let's look at kind of what else is on the table. In that case, that will typically present, if you did that kind of search, that would typically present a listicle, like top 10 alternatives to Proposify or top 10 alternatives to PandaDoc. And that is high intent because that's someone that's on the fence and thinking, I want to weigh up my options. And that could scoop up a few demos where you kind of position yours as the offer. You share your points of differentiation, how you're different, problems you fix that they don't. Maybe you've got a table that says this is what we do, this is what they don't do, etc. And then maybe you've got like an interactive demo on there and a CTA to book a demo. And likewise, if someone's searching like really similar kind of down the funnel, like best proposal software for sales teams, they're not typing that for fun. They're typing that because they run a sales team. They want to get some proposal software. So it's understanding the intent, looking at what kind of search results are there. Is it an article page? Is it a solution page? Is it a listicle? Is it a comparison? And then building content that's actually relevant for where that prospect is in their journey. But to your point, again, B2B is messy as anything.
Sure.
So many times someone's going to go on a page, jump off, speak to their exec team, get some recommendations off that, get some recommendations off Slack, get some recommendations off a community they're in, then maybe go back to your website, then go off for a bit, then go back, listen to your podcast, and eventually book a demo. So it's rare that things are clean cut and
easy. So it's interesting because that's one takeaway for me that CROs and SEO should absolutely be in alignment on is like, what is the purpose of this page? And how can we work together to make sure that there is alignment there? I've been part of some organizations where SEO is kind of off doing their own thing and CRO is doing their own thing and product marketing is
Right.
doing their own thing. And it's unfortunate when the silos exist. So I think that's something I staple quite a bit is like CROs need to try and do their best to like Mr. Gorbachev tear down these walls and do their absolute best to be connective tissue, connecting all of these things. It shouldn't be CRO's job, but if it's CRO doing it because no one else is doing it, like fuck it, that's fine. That's great. Because I do think that unifies everyone together. Because even you think about not even SEO, you just think about like, let's just say you have a company and someone owns like site search, someone owns cart, someone owns checkout. Like if these are isolated silos and I increase a bunch of traffic from search into like product page and then you own product page and I see my conversion rates go down and I'm like, well, you're sending me shitty traffic. Like, it shouldn't be these isolated where my KPIs just increase my top and don't give a shit about what happens down funnel. SEO, CRO, I see a natural connection of like, I need to make sure you're sending me good quality traffic, but I need to have the connections with you to give you signals to say, by the way, I'm seeing some negative signals, some positive signals. And that's where there's a alignment that should be made there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I imagine that happens quite a lot in larger scale organizations where things are kind of split off. I suppose I'm fortunate in the sense that a lot of the time I haven't worked with huge companies. Like some are fairly decent size, but I'm fortunate in most cases where I haven't had that much trouble. But then on the same thing, a lot of the companies I work with are not e-com, so I can imagine that can get a bit more detailed and granular.
What do SEOs care about?
If you're me, I mean, I think every SEO is a bit different. Like I think some are super technical, super technical minded. Some are more content led, which I'd say I'd fall between kind of content and strategy and kind of more practical attitude. And then some are a bit more holistic. And then folks like me that are more kind of B2B tech and B2B service niche. But the thing with me is that I'm from a sales background. So whilst I'm a founder at Breaking B2B, in my past, I was a sales guy for a long, long time. Eventually learned marketing, learned about websites, then learned SEO could drive leads to websites. That could fuel me. I could hit my commissions and I could close these leads. So I'm very much of a revenue focus, which is why I ramble on about this stuff on my podcast, on LinkedIn, all that kind of thing. Like, what's the point from my perspective of doing SEO if it's not going to lead to fueling your sales team with a steady stream of demos, leads, sales calls, whatever that CTA is? Why go for kind of random blog posts that might produce a bunch of traffic, but in the long run aren't really going to do a lot unless you're just using them for internal links and stuff like that to beef up other pages? Like, what is the point if we can't get an end product that's actually going to grow revenue and grow business? So that's very much kind of what I talk about and what we focus on.
Yeah, I was asking that question because that's what we care about, right? Like we both care about the same things. But I'm curious if there are different ways to approach solving for that metric that maybe that's the reason why SEOs and CROs don't necessarily work well together, or maybe they see each other as enemies when like we should be on the same team, right? We're all fighting for the same battle. But yeah, when I start the conversation, right, your immediate reaction, which I totally agreed with, is like, yeah, I think we are enemies. Well, but so like I'm trying to figure out why. Like, why is that the case? We are fighting the same battle, but we're enemies.
I guess it's more because how resources split. So I think from my experience, like if a company is like hiring I don't know if I've worked with companies that have like a separate CRO unit, but I've had companies where we've been doing the SEO and then they might have had a separate CRO web dev team that might have had CRO underneath that. But it's kind of like when that resource gets split and gets siloed off, like you said earlier, and like we're making all these recommendations, we're producing all the content, and we're kind of building a solid strategy from the SEO perspective and then getting pushback from the web team. And they don't want to do things like we said, or maybe it's going to take longer than planned. And as you know, when you've got sites that are perhaps limited on the SEO, maybe they haven't done much SEO work yet, and their website is very thin on content, like it's very poor from an SEO standpoint. We want to start publishing content as quick as we possibly can to start getting that crawled by Google and start getting some traction. But when you're getting pushback from teams that maybe want to make the page perfect from a design perspective, I'm very much just like, just bloody ship it. Yeah. Let's get it starting ranking. Then we can improve the design. Then when we're getting traffic, we can look at CRO a bit more detailed and we can start tweaking things. We can run tests. Like, this page has no traffic yet, man. Let's just get it out there.
It's funny you say that because CRO would probably align with that. Like in many cases, I don't want to speak for all, but in many cases, as long as the page you're shipping passes a threshold of like not going to fuck your site up, non-inferior, And it's obviously with new content, it's hard to test new content versus not. So it wouldn't be something you would probably test, more just analyze. But in many CRO cases, there is that level of practicality of just if you have to do something, like SEO just has to ship out these pages, I'd say just ship them. But keep your eye on metrics, keep your eye on making sure that nothing just is broken in terms of user experience, that you're not totally tanking other parts of your site because you're maybe pushing a bunch of traffic to this new page, which isn't, it doesn't have to be optimized, but it just can't be shit. It has to be, good enough. And then you take that baseline and improve on it. There's two kind of approaches to, like, people think of optimization in many ways as like, I'm going to give you a thing that's ugly, make it beautiful, whatever it is. But in many cases, experimentation can also be validation and risk mitigation. You are going to ship something and it passes through a filter of experimentation. And you test it. And when you roll it out, you're like, oh my God, this sucks. Thank God we didn't ship it, because now we have data that it sucks. I don't know how much that relates to SEO.
Well, that's the thing. Like, how often, I suppose a question for you is, how often do you get involved with pages that are more heavy on organic traffic? Because I can imagine a lot of what you're talking about, the principles would apply to paid traffic, but I'd guess a page would need to get a certain amount of organic traffic visitors to it before CRO even becomes like you said, yeah, you've got to have a threshold as an organization. This page has got to be to a certain standard.
Yeah.
I don't know, if it's a solution page, it's got a solid hero area.
Right,
it's got certain levels of social proof. It's got FAQs. It's got qualification parts of it. Let's say you've had this design threshold it needs to hit, but until it gets a certain amount of traffic from organic search, if it's hitting that baseline, I'd imagine CRO's not even like relevant, because it's not like, I don't know, then top spots of Google. So it's not getting that traffic to warrant it. Whereas I suppose if you're doing a paid campaign and it's getting that bang from day one, then it's a lot more important. Like, what are your thoughts there?
So it depends. The math can be different, that you could say it's not simply just traffic. It has to be the metric that you're looking to optimize for. So if you have 20,000 sessions, but your conversion rate's 0.0002%, you're probably not going to be able to detect any change unless you make a very large change. That's just kind of how the math works. Just to be clear, when I say CRO, I don't explicitly just mean A/B testing. CRO can also encompass like research, and a pre and post analysis, while far from scientific, is still an analysis. It's not a test, but it's an analysis, and confounded to hell. And the evidence is just going to be hard to say causationally. But you guys, I'm sure, do a ton of that too. Like SEO, I know there's some tools that do SEO A/B testing, but for the most part, you guys are shipping changes and just like watching to see if it gets traffic. And right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, with that kind of shipping something, make sure it hits like a design layout functionality threshold. And that's what you're doing with SEO, right? You never know. Nothing is ever perfect. Like a website is evolving, it's growing, it's constantly changing, which at least it should be if you want it to ramp up. But yeah, with SEO, you're going in, you're using tools. There should be a few angles that you do, right, to get a page ranking. You should be understand the intent, understand what's ranking now. Yes, use SEO tools, be it Ahrefs, SEMrush, whatever, to understand kind of what search terms to weave in, technical best practices, etc. Then weave in customer research, which a lot of SEOs neglect. So understand, like, based upon this page, if it is an alternatives page, for example, if we go back to the proposal software example, like someone's searching for an alternative to another vendor, what do we know from our customer research? Like, what problems are we fixing that our competitors aren't?
Yeah.
How are we different? What is the impact of not fixing that? Like, what are the benefits we provide that they don't? Are we different on, I don't know, maybe you can get ramped up quicker. Maybe you can unlock certain features quicker. Maybe your time to value is faster, whatever. How can we highlight that from our research on the page? Maybe we've got a nice customer review video that literally drills in on that pain point that we can showcase there. And that's just stuff that a lot of SEOs skip because they just think, oh, let's rank it. That's enough. Like, we don't need someone to do much more on the page, when obviously, like, as we know, we need to earn that person's trust, resonate with them, and then build trust and then convert them.
So this is kind of where I wanted to spend some time on, which is like, all right, well, we've determined from the beginning that we're enemies because we're fighting for resources. But let's think of the glass half full. What can we do to partner together? Because we do have a shared goal. We want to be friends. We just don't like each other because we're fighting over resources. What can we do to partner together? So you guys are conducting research. I would say in a best case scenario, the research that you guys are collecting is the same research that CROs should also have access to, or vice versa. Any research, like that's where there should be this pretty tight knit collaboration that any research we see, I'm telling you, so you're aware, and vice versa. That's like easy slam dunk one to make sure we're all looking at the same body of work and we're all working towards optimizing for the same problem statements that our users face. If the SEO has a body of research that CRO doesn't have access to, so of course we're going to go in two different parallel. We're going to go into very different paths.
Yeah. So I guess the way I'd imagine it in my head, just because I purely work off Google Docs and Sheets for pretty much everything, and so does our company, like I literally imagine having like a shared Google Sheet or Doc and basically saying, look, this is the customer research we've got. Let's say we're doing it for a client. This is the customer research they've given us. Like these are the main pain points. These are the ICPs. These are their frustrations. These are their jobs to be done. These are their goals. Here's some kind of social proof we can leverage at different points of the journey. All right, cool. We've got that on file. This is, I don't know, in the SEO case, like these are a couple of keywords we're going after for the page. We know that in this case, we're building like a comparison alternatives listicle. So it's a listicle type blog article. So I give you all that information. Then I maybe propose like, this is some of the content and outlines that we propose for the page. And then maybe your team come back to me and say, well, these are the elements. This is how the page should be structured. These are some of the best practices that we need to consider.
I think so. And that's where when we are, going back to the very beginning, well, we're fighting for resources. No, we should both be fighting for that same thing. And like, you want that page for the SEO. We want that page because the customers are asking for that content, and we could optimize it. We could add the forms. We could test on it. And it behooves us to have that shared goals, knowing that we're both fighting for these resources. So that to me seems like a very easy slam dunk for us to work together.
Yeah, exactly. And then like if you are doing it for a client or whether it's internal, it doesn't matter. The quicker that you can prove that this page is performing, in this case, it's probably demos that we want to go after from this alternatives page. Like if you can optimize it to do that, and our page can improve sessions times, it can rank well, and at the same time kind of build enough trust to get these folks booking a demo, like that's a win for everyone.
So let me ask that question, because obviously what's important to quote unquote CROs is conversion rate. Not really. It depends on what you're optimizing for. But for the most part, at the end of the day, most CROs or most experimentation people are just trying to get more people to book a demo, add to cart, convert. Like we're looking for the business driving metrics. AOV, RPV, stuff like that for e-com and B2B, MQLs, SQOs. I guess that's not really tactical. That's pretty strategic because that's just like make the business money. But like when you launch a new page or when you run an SEO initiative, so you talked about things like session. Is it as simple as like bounce rates, time on site pages a session? Like what are the things that SEOs are looking for to determine success? Or what are things they're looking for to say it's not working?
If you're doing your SEO from a commercial standpoint, you should have research anyway. Like you should be able to know, like if we can get it to the top 3 positions, we know it can get roughly this amount of traffic. And if we take this kind of rough percentage baseline as a conversion rate, then we know once we get it there, we can get roughly X amount of leads off the back of it once we get it there. Yeah. But then, metrics you'll measure as you go is naturally you'll measure the organic ranking. Then from there, you'll be able to understand the amount of traffic. Then you'll dive into things like you said, like the session time. If the website's got a horrible bounce rate, then we know something's off, whether it's the design, the UI, the content, the copy, the messaging, the formatting on mobile, PC, whatever, page speed, I don't know, something's off.
And that's where I think SEO and CRO have another huge opportunity for collaboration, right? Like, have you looked at heat maps?
Not that much, really. I used to. Don't get involved in them that much anymore.
So that's something that I think can be incredibly powerful for SEOs. At CROs geek out a lot in. Figuring out where drop-offs happen could actually help on content optimization, right? It's not just time on page, but if they only scroll to like, if you see a drop-off in a page is like this one chapter, and after they read that, they left, that could feed into your content to say, well, shit, maybe we need to like think about this content a little bit better or reword this paragraph, right?
Yeah, especially if, like you say, if the drop-off's consistent, and you can work out where that's happening.
So it could be content, right? It could be the content drop-off. It could even be template, which maybe then you kick it back to SEO's like, it's not my fault. You go figure it out, CRO. But that's where I think there's so much opportunity for collaboration that I'm still like, I know why we hate each other, but we shouldn't. We really shouldn't. We're on the same team.
I think if you could work in that way that we talked about earlier, where it's like everything that's proposed is shared.
Yeah.
And if there's a way where teams can get stuff signed off and actions done quickly. But in my experience, like unless you're a fast moving startup, it's so rare to see. Like I know teams where they're looking at 2 to 3 months, especially in like the finance and fintech space, just to get pages published,
Yeah.
which is insane. Whereas I've got other funded startups I work with and we can get stuff shipped like super fast.
I mean, that's obviously a challenge that's not unique to CRO, but
Mm.
that's also why I tell CROs this. We should have more of these conversations that SEO should be involved in testing because you guys provide that valuable POV for certain things that we probably wouldn't have considered. Product owners should be involved, engineering should be involved, UX should be involved, design, research teams, everyone should have input into this. That's what creates the cohesive, all these things, if you isolate out, then you're going to create further isolation. And then you're going to create, well, SEO is going to put a bunch of traffic and then it's all garbage. It creates further distances when instead those gaps should be bridged with folks working together. How do we bridge these gaps? And I think we've come up with some pretty interesting next steps, right? Like shared docs, shared research. Don't reinvent the wheel if you already have the research. Let's pool everything we have together, involve the teams. What other thoughts do you have on maybe ways that, knowing that SEOs tick a certain way, how can maybe CROs tap into that to make sure we don't step on your toes, but we know what you like so we could give you more of that so we could work together better?
Yeah, I think a lot of SEOs, like this is blunt statement, but some are probably less open-minded than me. They're very much stuck in their ways.
A lot of CROs are very close-minded too, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you get different types of SEOs, right? At the end of the day, because I've got that sales background, I'm happy to do it. And just like yourself, I run a podcast. So my opinions on things change all the time because I'm constantly talking, in my case, to B2B marketers, revenue leaders that are smarter than me, that have done stuff I haven't done. And they'll share insights, thoughts, ideas, and I'll steal the ones that I think are decent, go in with a hypothesis, and I'll experiment with them and put them into play, whether that is on a website, whether that is for my podcast, whether that's with LinkedIn content. So I'm constantly tweaking. Whereas I think a lot of folks, especially in this space, are like trapped in the mind of, technical SEO is the only way, or content's the only way, or backlinks are the only way. Whereas if you can kind of open your mind a bit more and realize that there's so much more you can do and you can like work with other teams.
So can I push you on that? So I had a conversation with Aaron Weigel about problem designers. Like you said, there's kind of problem children all over the place, SEO, CRO, design all over the place. And I wanted to ask her, like, all right, you're dealing with a designer who just believes their work is the best. You don't need to test it. I know I worked at Apple. I have an MBA. I have this or that, blah, blah, blah. What are some signs that you're working with a problematic SEO? And what would be some tips to try and maybe break that shell?
I would say if you're working with problematic SEO, they're probably just looking to rank terms. I would say that their approach seems very methodical, but it's not really taking the time to understand like the business, who the ideal customer is, what are their expensive problems, like the bleeding neck problems that cause them to actually need an offer like yours, that stop them in their day-to-day because the, I don't know, resources are lacking or leads are lacking or the business isn't going to hit their revenue goals. Like they don't understand that. And that's really important, especially if the SEO is getting involved in the content strategy. Like, how are you going to build content that resonates if you don't know the clients you're building it for? So they're more like, all right, we're going to target a bunch of keywords. We're going to build some content. We're going to do some technical SEO. We're going to build some links. We'll get it ranking, job done. Whereas then a lot of the stuff we talked about earlier in this episode about resonating and that kind of stuff, and then building a design and layout that's going to have the best chance to actually earn that trust and get that prospect to take that next step. So
got it.
I think it's just that holistic approach, that realizing that we're not trying to rank robots. We're trying to rank people that are emotional. They're using their emotions first. And if our page is not speaking to those emotions, be it pain, be it joy, be it anger, frustration, if we can't evoke emotion in that page and then earn their trust, then we're not going to get sod all from that page.
I love it. I have one final question for you, but we'll quickly run into the jump and I'll ask you at the tail end of this. So let's jump into it. So join us after the jump for that unique question. So here is the question I'm very interested to hear your perspective on. I've talked to a couple copywriters, Eden and a couple other folks who are basically, we're laughing about this. I'd say I'm probably dying inside a little bit about this around AI in copywriting, as it seems to be a lot of times it's bots writing for bots. And I'm curious about your SEO perspective on this, that as I'm sure you're not, I don't know. I'm actually curious. Are you on that one? Are you on the AI hype train? And two, is this a good thing for us to have like AI bots writing for SEO bots? And like, do we just take humans entirely out of the equation? I'm very curious on your perspective with this.
A lot of what I talk about is B2B tech and B2B service. Like those are the main kind of clients we work with at Breaking B2B.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, these are high ticket offers, right? Like a lot of the folks I'm working with are selling like 50K, 60K ACV.
Yep.
If this content doesn't work super hard, there's no chance it's going to convert. And AI content, whilst you can, there's so many tools now that you can use to build out page frameworks through AI. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with using AI tool as a starter. Like this is a rough outline of maybe the meta title and description idea, H1, H2, H3 idea, rough format of the page, and it kind of layout of the page you should consider. I think that's okay. But I think anything more than that, if you land on a page and you start seeing things like supercharge your revenues 20x all in one platform today, invest in our hyper performance wizardry, you'll think, what the fuck is this company doing? Just bounce off to a company that then talks sense.
I've asked every guest this since I found this headline. It's the dumbest fucking headline I've ever heard. Tell me what product family this headline relates to. The future is here.
Is that a headline on the homepage?
On the homepage.
Got to be a CRM, surely.
No. I don't, it's you're like the fact that you can't even be in like the right family is just a testament to exactly what you're saying. I'm pretty sure that's an AI because it's like if a human wrote that, we're doomed as humanity. If that's if that went through an approval process, that went through branding, there's like 20 people who saw that and they're like, this is the best thing in the world. Maybe we actually fuck it. Maybe we do need AI because if a human wrote that, we're fucked.
I don't know. I mean, it's weird. I mean, these companies must have just so much market share that they don't really care about how clear, specific, or they don't care about differentiating themselves in the market. They just want to use some random text and it'll be fine. Okay,
so I have a follow-up question for you on that. I know domain authority is a big one, right? When you have large companies with huge market share, I don't want to say SEO doesn't matter, but you're playing the game on easy mode versus maybe smaller companies that are just trying to break out. Is that a fair assumption to say?
Yes.
I guess back to the conversation around CROs and SEO. If you are not a big company and you're playing on hard mode, what are some are there differences in approach and strategy? Is it more long tail searching? Like what does the SEO think of? And then how can CRO partner with that?
Yeah, you can tell me how CRO will partner. This is exactly what I did for my business. So Breaking B2B, breakingb2b.com is just over 90 days old. So we started on literally a fresh brand new domain. I saw you did a
rebrand.
That's literally what we did. So we got a brand new domain, no authority at all. And I thought right away, like, I need to prove concept. Like I need to eat my own dog food and show folks I can rank. So this is what
I did not know I love that. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's really cool. I didn't know you did it for those reasons, but I love that. You're talking the talk and you're walking the walk.
Yeah. So we've got an episode recently, like if you go on breakingb2b.com and then hit the podcast tab, you can see this like not results in 90 days. It's a recent app. Anyway, so what we did, which other companies can do, is you literally just...
Hey guys, Shiva here. I don't want to speak for Sam, so go ahead and check out his podcast over at Breaking B2B. He goes into this in very in-depth detail. The link will be in the description box below.
Cool. All right. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast from A to B. I know you plugged your Breaking B2B. What was it? breakingb2b.com. That's where you could find all of Sam's work. And then also your podcast is there. What other cool stuff are you working on?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's 3 ways to connect. Like LinkedIn, I post daily tips, ideas, stories, opinions on SEO and websites for the B2B space. Some on LinkedIn. Otherwise, breakingb2b.com. You can try the newsletter or the podcast or apply to work with us.
Love it. Cool. Sam, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Cheers.